Welcome to another instalment of AMER'S Angle, and today you've joined me at the fantastic South Lagoon at Boston Lakes in Cambridgeshire. It's a natural lake that actually opens out to the River Great Ouse on the other side there, right opposite me. Great natural fish stocks, bream, roach, skimmers, perch, zander, pike, all sorts, carp. But that's one reason for being here. The next reason, and the main reason, is to show you how I use these. Up until fairly recently, all my feeder fishing on still waters has always been based around the standard cage feeders. Now, on these natural waters, it used to be cage feeders, maggot feeders, sometimes a method feeder when the emergence of commercial fisheries came to the fore. But about 3-4 years ago for me, I first heard about these, and they are the window feeder. Now, when I first saw this, the design, and heard about them, I was very skeptical. I even used one at the very beginning and I wasn't overly impressed because I think the early models of these, they weren't quite right for the job and I didn't really understand how they worked. But that was until I actually learned how to use them and what they were all about. And today, that's exactly what I'm going to show you. It's my take on how I fish the window feeder. As you can see, I'm just about ready to get fishing. What I've done is I've started off, I've clipped up first of all at 40 metres. I've cast a bomb around, found a nice hard gravelly bottom, perfectly 40 metres, nice distance for today. Just kept it really simple, one line for today's session. I've used 2 pints of ground bait through the bait up feeder. I've put in half a pint of loose baits, that's casters, maggots and micro pellets. I won't introduce worms, only when I feel I need to through the session, if I have to. You know, it's normally good to pick out a bigger fish or two. So I'll go through the feeders as the session kind of unfolds and we'll talk about my choice of feeders and why they are different to cages and how they work differently to cages. So yeah, let's get on with the fishing. Well, that's a second cast and that's a nice bite. Feels like a small skimmer, but it's a bite. Early doors is always a good thing. Just noticed we just had a little ripple come up because the lake's very flat today, which is a good thing. Also, there's quite a bit of willow fluff on the lake and it's nothing worse than getting that willow fluff in your braid. It's not a big fish, but like I said, again, it's a fish, a skimmer. It's a nice start to the session anyway, and also gives the window feeder an awful lot of credibility. Yeah, it's about a pound. Nice fish. Nice start to the session. Well, the good thing is this is the third cast. We had a fish on the second cast, pound skimmer, which is a really good sign. So I was a little bit worried because it's quite a warm day today. It's very bright, very still. It's just a ripple coming on the lake now, mainly in the widest part. But good thing is we've had a fish, you know, so I've got something to work on. And the thing about window feeder fishing is I'm deliberately not going to fish cages today because I'm going to, really the point of today is to show how these window feeders really work. There's times you can put the cage out there and maybe draw a few fish in early, which is what I did with the bait up feeder. So I'm kind of looking at it as I'm trying to pin the fish to the bottom. You know, those fish in this warm water will probably want to come up a little bit. You know, the impact of the ground bait feeder, cage ground bait feeder, I should say, going in can bring, you know, ground bait off it. There is a large head of small fish as well. So yeah, so what I'm looking at doing really is trying to pin those fish down, fishing a fairly big bait, fairly big hook because of the bait as well, and obviously a slightly thicker line. So what I'm looking at doing is aiming for those big skimmers, those bream that are in the lake. And the good thing about a window feeder is you can mix it up a little bit. You can just push ground bait through it. You can put lots of loose offerings through that feeder as well. So I'm, you know, and if I need to and I'm struggling for bites, I could always soften up the ground bait as well. And that's the beauty of a window feeder. I can put some soft ground bait in it as well and cloud it up a little bit off the bottom. But yeah, indications are at a premium at the moment, but you know, 3 casts in approximately 25 minutes isn't too bad with a pound skimmer in the net, because I do expect things to build as the day goes on, even though we are going to be coming into, say, the warmest part of the day in the afternoon. But yeah, but it'd be nice to go through it and see how things work out, you know, on days like today, because it's not always easy, but I think that's why I like a window feeder so much, and why I'm, you know, I've certainly grown to love them, let's say. Another fish, nice bite, not a big fish, probably similar to the first one, sort of 12-ounce pound fish. Maybe, yeah, sort of pound fish, but yeah, it's not a bad start. It's not going mad. I've had a couple of small indications like line bites, but we'll get this one in the net. And I think we'll go through the bait choices for today. I mean, most of the bait we use, actually it's a bit bigger than I thought. This one's probably £2, which is nice. So yeah, we'll just get this one in the net. Nice fish, probably £2. I'll just take the hook out of this, and then we'll just classic bream basically in the hook, but nice fish. So my bait choices for today, they're really very simple, classic skimmer bream baits, casters. Got a pint of casters with me today. Always like some casters on these natural waters. They sit on the silts, even on find a nice gravelly bottom, but I always feel there's something there, and they'll always pick out a bonus fish, a little bit like these skimmers I've caught so far. Dead maggots, I love dead maggots. Again, inner baits like casters, always attract something into your peg, even on the hardest of days. And skimmers and bream love them, especially when they're dead like this. They'll, again, like the casters, they're inert, they'll sit on the bottom, they won't mess up the feeder mix that you've put in. It won't break up because they're crawling in and out the ground bait whilst you're casting or within your mix. You can leave them, you know they're going to sit there. I've got some other baits for the hook. I've started on some red worms. I've got some red worms. Here, there's a little ball of red worms. Great bait for skimmers and bream. What I've done is the first two I've actually caught on 2 red worms, just nicked the tail off both, but a good bait. Obviously dendrobenas for chopping. I've got kind of a little mix here, I call this my little anaconda mix. And what I've done is I've chopped some worms. I just chop them as I go along as I need them. I've put some casters, some maggots in, and not a lot. And then what I've done is I've actually put some 2mm Dynamite F1 Sweet micro pellets in. They're yellow, I do like them. You can see they don't break down as easy as a lot of pellets do. And I just find that having a few micro pellets in there, again, it's an inert bait. There is carp in here, and it does get, even though it's a natural venue, there is a lot of carp angles, put a lot of particles in. So I always like a micro pellet for those skimmers as well. And again, you always know they're going to be sat there on the bottom with the worms, the casters and the maggots. So I always know, you know, wherever I'm feeding, that there's going to be some bait sat there on the bottom, ready for the next fish, which is really what the window feed is all about, but we'll discuss that in more detail later. And then the final thing is ground bait choice. I'm using Dynamite Halibut Marine, which is a fantastically smelly fish mealy ground bait, very dark, but I've kind of lightened it with some swim stim. So some swim stim natural, so that's that mix. And I've mixed it, I wouldn't say on the dry side, it's slightly on the dry side. It's damp, but not over damp. And the reason why I've done it like that, it's not very deep here, it's only 4 to 5 feet at the deepest. So I don't want it to be too, I can always change the texture, you know, the consistency of this. So I can add water if I need to, but I like it to start, you know, to have some activity to begin with, especially in the window feeder. And if I want to pin those fish down even more or slop it up a little bit, I can add a little bit of water. So that's bait choices for today. Right, let's get this out again. It's interesting, every time I get a little liner, like little, not big liners, because they're not big fish, but every time I get a little liner, sometimes twitch the feeder, and then you get a bite straight away. I probably think if it was a bit more tow on the water, that these fish would probably be a little bit more confident. They're not the big fish, but they're nice fish, still around the pound and a half mark. That's probably another pound skimmer. Yeah, it is interesting. They are a little bit cagey, but they're not big fish, so yeah, it's probably about a pound. Let's just take the hook out of this. Hooked nicely in the lip. Just had another fish. That's my fourth nice skimmer so far in about an hour and a half. So it's not setting the world, it's not setting the world to light. But what is interesting is that was probably my first what I'd call cast I wasn't happy with. I never leave it if I'm not happy with the cast. I only just about hit the clip. It didn't go in particularly well. So I've reeled in, cast out a much better cast, almost perfect. Really pleased with it. And the feeder's hit the bottom. The rod's carried on going. So just goes to show, never leave it in if you're unhappy with it. If you're unsure of something, bring it in, cast so you get a proper cast. Sometimes, it's no point wasting 5, 10, 15 minutes sat there. You can just play on your mind. And then and I kind of proved a point really for myself that, a good cast straight after, a fish straight away. So yeah, very pleasing. So it's a small skimmer. When you look at the shape of a window feeder and you look at the opening on a window feeder, you can see the window itself holds the bait in. And one of the good things about a window feeder, and I think it's probably the most important point of using a window feeder, is that the bait only really comes out when that feeder moves. Because that's totally, with the Guru feeders, which I like, the Guru and the Preston ones, the Guru one has a lip on the bottom, the Preston don't. So when I want to hold the bait in, so like today, I'm not getting bites quite as fast as maybe we expected because it's flat, but I've had 5 fish already, so it's not bad. But 2 of the 5 fish, what I've done is I've just moved that feeder, and I'm going to show you what I do. And it's an important point to bring the food out, try and attract a quick bite, because those fish are drawn to the feed. Because obviously, because it's been sat there a while now and nothing's happened, just moving that feeder, bringing the food out, bringing the bait over it, can attract a bite. And I've caught 2 of the 5 so far doing that, and that's a brilliant thing to do with a window feeder because of the shape as well, because they kind of sit upright or at an angle. They're easy to dislodge, if you like, and pull the feed out. One of the things I do, and this certainly works really well, is just to pull the feeder. You don't need to lift the rod up. You can just literally grab the braid with your hand towards the butt eye, and you can see with the tip I'm just pulling that round now, and then that tip will just move like that. So I've dislodged the feeder. That was quite aggressive, more than normal. So that could have been behind a stone or a little bit of silt. It's a hard bottom. Then just gather the slack and just put a bend in the tip. So what I've done is I've probably moved that. That was probably a little bit more aggressive than normal because it was stuck on something. Sometimes it's just a gentle pull, and then what you'll find is that you'll attract the bite straight away. And I've had 2 out of the 5 have been that way. So be interested to see now. I've just pulled that, whether that happens again, especially when it's still. There's no toe in the water, so there's nothing to move bait out the feeder on along the bottom. I'm pinning those fish down with the window. That's the idea of getting the bait in the window down to the bottom fast, and then I'm pulling the bait out if I don't get a bite. So it has worked twice, as I say. Let's see if it works a 3rd time. And there you go. That twitching, it works. That's 3 out of 6 fish now. So that's 50% of the fish I've caught. Albeit it's not a big fish, but it just goes to show how it induces a bite. That when you move that, when you dislodge that feeder. And that's brilliant about, with a window, because they're so easy to move, and the way they give you a quick bite, because it's when that's at the point the bait comes out the feeder, doesn't come out any other time. Unless you're fishing it soft sometimes in deep water and the ground bait comes off the front. But you can change your ground bait texture for that. And there's another skimmer just by twitching it. Not a big fish by any means. you know, it's a really hard day today. There's not a lot of people on the lake catching. In fact, being told there's nothing being caught, and this is my 6th fish, so it's obviously working. I'm going to make reference to my finger as well. I am sorry, but at my age, I played in goal a few weeks ago and probably didn't want to block the shot. But yeah, I'm kind of fishing a bit cack-handed today because I've got it strapped up after a break. So it's 5-6 weeks in now, so it is healing well, but I do apologise for the cast. Not the cast, this cast. I'm going to blame that for that bad cast earlier as well. Little bite. We're having a bit of trouble today with willow fluff. It's that time of year where that willow fluff is blowing off the trees. You can see there that willow fluff is actually trapped. It's coming onto my line, coming through the eyes and balling up. It's catching against my braid knot, which is, as you can see, is incredibly small, very easy to go through the eyes. But if you get that go through your eyes, as you can see, it's hard to get through. You keep it on there, that's just going to, the chances are you'll either get a crack off or you'll snap the tip of your rod. So always make sure you get that willow fluff off your braid. I check it all the time. Just hit into another fish. As you can see, we've got a little bit of wind on the water. I mean, I had an hour where I never had a sign, and then I didn't change anything up really. I've softened the ground bait up is the only thing I've done. I wouldn't, not too soft, just to make it a little bit stickier, just to keep it down there more, maybe in the feeder a little bit longer, then switch it. But since that wind came on the water, I've had 2 bites and 2 casts, so there's obviously something in it because the sun's out now and it's very bright. Feels like a good bream, this one. Just get him to the net. You see the window there? Yeah, it's a nice fish. So it's probably a couple of pounds, 2.5 pound. There you go, nice one. The bite like that. I'm going to go through the feeders just briefly. What I'm going to do is, obviously that's a cage feeder, and as you can see by the shape of a cage feeder, when that hits the water, the weight is side on. The water is basically going to be able to hit that bait on impact. So if you imagine you've got your bait plugged into there, that will hit the water kind of face down. The bait, unless it's quite sticky and it's quite packed in quite tight, that is going to almost empty out fairly quickly in deep water, even in shallow water. So yeah, it's great. It attracts fish very quickly. It distributes the food exactly where you want to, kind of, you know, as soon as you want to, really, which is brilliant, and that's why cages are so good. And usually that's how I would start a session. Start with the cage, get the fish there, catch them with the window. But talking about the window, which is what we're focusing on today, I kind of use 2 types of window. I know there's 3 here, but there are only 2 sizes and then 2 makes. I use the Guru ones, I would say 70% of the time, and the Preston ones the rest of the time. I love these two brands of window feeders. And the reason being is because the plastics are dead right. I like the shape of them. I like the weight. I like the Preston ones because they have a sloping weight. So it's very good at distributing the food out to where you want it when you get it down there. The Guru one, on the other hand, has a lip on it, which I like when I'm putting some softer ground baits like I've switched to. this has worked really well. So I've almost put 3 fish in the net where this one didn't. And then obviously there's a small one where sometimes I just put almost neat loose feed, like worms, casters, dead maggots, tiny little bit of ground bait. You can push the bait up a little bit and plug the bottom, and even through the water you won't get any bait coming off it. So they're good as well. And when you want little disturbance, they're very good, especially if you're trying to nick that extra fish. So there's a few little things there which I like about the window feeders. Another good point about window feeders is, you know, obviously we're fishing in shallow water today, but in deep water, they just go down very quickly. And you're not going to get kind of a dispersing of bait at an angle in a column. They're going to go down. So in a way, what they're going to do is they're going to actually pin the fish to the bottom. And then once you move that feeder, whether you strike or you twitch it like I've done today, you're almost feeding for the next fish. And that's what's good about a window. And it's a lot of things I've learnt about them and how they work. And you've almost got to think of it the opposite as you would to a cage. So they're bait encased. You're going to get it down quicker. You're not going to attract the fish initially like you would on say a cage feeder, but it's certainly a feeder that should never be ignored. And casting wise, you know, if you struggle casting, I'm in a bit of a parrot cage of a peg today, and like I said, with my finger issue, but these cast like a dart. I mean, I'm hitting 40 meters with an 11-foot rod with ease, really. I know it's calm, but you know, at least there's no effort into it. You're not hitting the clip too hard. You're not making a silly big disturbance in shallow water. So, you know, they fly like a dart, fly through the wind, dead straight, dead accurate. So yeah, they are absolutely fantastic feeder. And there was no need for me to be so cynical at the beginning about them, because over the last 2 to 3 years, they've probably caught me more fish than any other feeder. Right, I've got the feeder loaded up. I'm just going to do a quick thing on casting. It's like telling everyone how to suck eggs, this, but it's not really. Everyone has a different way of casting. For me, casting, especially for accuracy, it's like playing snooker. You look down the cue for accuracy. Well, what I do is I always prefer to bring the feeder over to my left. Even though I'm right-handed, I like to bring it over the top of my head. So I'll give you an example. So I swing it out, feeder's loaded up. I always give it about 1.5 meters, 4 foot drop basically. Bring it back so it's coming to my left. And then you can look straight down it, hit the clip, down, and I'm straight in line where I'm fishing. So that's hit the target perfectly, because I'm looking down the rod, and at the same time I'm looking at my marker, all in one. So I can bring the rod back, feel the biting point almost, cast out to the marker. It always goes, I always find it's more accurate. If I was to bring it to my right, I'm bringing it off center. So I find that harder to be accurate for me personally than if I'm looking down with both eyes. I feel if I'm bringing it off to my right, I'm just looking off to my right with the side of my face, as opposed to over my head with 2 eyes on the spot, as opposed to off the side. So it's just a point about casting, and accuracy is everything in this game. Unlike a traditional ground bait feeder, which is open from the top and bottom, as you can see, a window feeder is a sideways loading. So what we do is we just put a mound of bait on. So I've got casters, a couple of micro pellets you can see in there, and there's obviously a few chopped worms. It's a case of scooping those worms with your thumb straight off the top. So you've got your loose bait is in there, now you can see it through the back of the feeder, and then just gently start to compact the ground bait in at the front. So it is a case of just keep packing it in. You can feel as it gets tighter that is now ready, just to give a gentle squeeze. And then what I like to do is just clean off the front, so it is very aerodynamic, and you're not going to get a lot of ground bait coming off on the cast or on impact. And that is now ready to be cast. So it's a very important point, and you can actually wet this ground bait up if you want to as well. But that's how you load a window feeder. Okay, another little switch to worm and caster this time. Whether it made a difference, I'm not sure, because it's been a while without a bite, but it has resulted in another nice skimmer, which is nice. This fish, well, kind of a similar size really today, but again, that's probably about 1.25 pounds, 1.5 pound fish, which is nice. Like I said, I've switched to a softer ground bait this afternoon. It's definitely put more fish in it. I've switched to the Guru window feeder. It just seems a better feeder for the soft ground bait because it's got that little lip on the bottom, which I like. So it just holds it in place. So I know it's not coming off in the water when it hits on impact. Nice fish, £1.5, pound, something like that. Just pop it in. Coming towards the end of the day now, the end of the session I should say, and it's been yeah, it's been very interesting indeed. I mean, it's not been easy. There's been 4 or 5 anglers on the lake who haven't had a bite. The braid's coming up on the top and the pressure's so high, but yeah, it's been good, it's been interesting. I think obviously just fishing a window feeder today, it's enabled me to change it up a little bit, put soft ground baits in, which I wouldn't be able to do really unless I want to break it up and on the surface with a cage feeder. And I've been able to just to put casters through it, worms, try dead maggot, which has only really resulted in small fish and little taps on the tip. But it's been better just to sit and wait on the bottom with a worm, sometimes 2 small pieces of red worm or even a worm and 2 casters, and just sit there and wait for a bite, you know, because that's the good thing about the window. It kind of encases the bait to the bottom, as we've mentioned earlier. But yeah, it's been good. I've probably got over 20 fish, skimmers, averaging, well, they're all over £1, some are over £2, so it's a good net of fish. And on the whole, you know, it just proves how good a feeder these window feeders are, you know, and how effective they are on days like today. Yeah, you could change it up and try different feeders, and I'd always advise that, but the idea and the behind today's video is really to show you how good the window feeder really is and how effective it is. So hopefully we'll get 1 more fish and then we'll call it a day and see how we've done. Oh well, that last fish didn't materialise. It's just got harder, so it's been a fantastic day though all the same. And yeah, it's been interesting. You know, it's not been an easy day. There's guys around me who've not caught any fish at all today, so I'm very pleased for, you know, how the day's gone. But we'll have a look. We'll get the net out, see exactly what we've got in the net. But I've got somewhere around the 22, 25 skimmers, you know, a couple of big ones over £2, but they're all over £1. Well, there we go. What a great day it's been. Goes to show just a few changes, you know, with the window feeder on a really hard day with high pressure can still result in a good net of fish like this. So thank you very much for watching, and if you haven't already, please like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep these videos going for you. Thanks again.